Hey guys, I'm Tricia.
And I'm Julie.
And this is the
And She Laughs podcast.
You are going to get a lot of candor and real
laughs,
talk.
yeah.
Lots of laughs, hopefully. That could be us nervous giggling at ourselves because we can't tell if you're laughing. But we are so excited. We're so excited. This is something that God kind of started in us. I would even say God started this in us. Like so many years ago, even when we were teenagers. But we are sisters.
Yes.
Same
womb, same mom,
same dad. We act similarly, but we don't look a lot alike. So a lot of people ask that question. So we always feel the need to clarify.
Right.
Same mom, same dad.
Yeah, but if you happen to be watching this via video, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you guys are the same person. But we're actually not. It's really cool to see two people come from the same parents, but be parented completely differently. I'm the oldest, Trisha's the second. And then for us, we parent just a bit differently.
Sure. Our marriages are
so different.
But the way we approach things,
right.
It's like same goals, same vision, same like we want to follow Jesus. We want to live holy and righteous. Right. We want to seek him, but the way that we do that is
totally different. Trisha's an 8 on the Enneagram. I'm a 2. And so we are just wanting to open the doors of our lives, let you see what it looks like to be a pastor's wife, to live in this world in
and
crazy 2024.
To give your life, not just to not just to the Lord, but to people and to telling our story. And so we have a lot in both of our stories that we've gone through, like mutually, that we've gone through individually. And through all of it, we're like, we give God so much glory for what he's done and even how we got here to sitting on this couch and sharing our story, because that really is something that God's always, like, it's something that we've asked of the Lord, that he's laid on our heart. Like, how can we use our mistakes and our messes and
our grief
our meddling, all of the things. How can we use that to not be like, hey, I made it, but to be like, I made it because God is so good and God is so faithful. And I think that if there's any banner or display from our lives, that's our hope. And so we want to share our story. And we want to laugh, but it's very possible that we'll also cry. We want to dive into the word. And so that's what we want to do. And so we're so happy that you're tuning in to our podcast.
Yes. So if you're watching, I think it's important that you know, I guess these necessarily won't be aired in order, but this is our Genesis episode. It's our very first one that we're recording. If you only knew what we went through just to set this scene for you, and to be in a place where we're comfy. We've got our tea and our coffee. I don't drink coffee. Trisha drinks coffee. She's a coffee addict.
I would put it in through an IV if I could.
It's true. But I'm a tea person, so we've got that all set. But I think a lot of times whenever when we said, we feel called, to start a podcast, they were like, oh, okay, well, what's the why behind it? What are you guys doing? And I don't think there's necessarily anything that we're like, oh, we're the best at this. We're the coolest. We're the most relevant. We're legit. It literally was just because God told us to do it. And if there's only like 2 listeners on the other end, hi, Mom.
Hi, Tina Butts.
If there's only 2 listeners on the other end, it doesn't matter. God called us to do this.
And we're not in this for followers. We're in this to share our journey of following. And so
that's really good, man.
Man, thanks.
That's super good. I'm going to write that down.
You should write that down. But truly when I think about the process of how we got here, it was these moments of God inspiring and laying it on our heart. And we serve a God of process.
We do.
There are so many, when you are looking throughout the word, I mean, like, day one, it's, hey, could have saved the world in seconds with one word created the earth. But he didn't create the earth in one word. He took 7 days, and then
Moses and the children of Israel could have made it to the promised land in like 3 days.
Abraham, Joseph,
all of them.
You look at our examples and it's so on display that we serve a God of process. And in Psalms 84, one of like my, I would say life contemplative scriptures would be Psalms 84. And it says, "Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They will still be praising you. Blessed is the man whose strength is in you, whose heart is set on pilgrimage." And I think about that word pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And pilgrimage is not, the 10-minute trek from your house to the grocery store. Pilgrimage is indicative of the journey and of the process. And it doesn't just say one who, blessed is the man whose strength is in you, who endures the pilgrimage. It's whose heart is set on the pilgrimage. From Philippians 1:6, "I am confident that he who began a work inside me will continue performing it until the day of Christ Jesus."
Right.
Are we so confident in him that my heart can be set on your pilgrimage? It's not just that I'm enduring. It's not just that I'm just living it out just because. My heart is set
on the
process because
Absolutely.
I'm so confident in you.
Yeah.
I have major failed on that one. Just for the record, I feel like I made a strong point, and I just needed to be like, I'm not always great at that.
No, well, and you also should know that Tricia received the Lord and started living a godly life several years before I did. I found the Lord at 19.
I'm also naturally like a rule follower.
Yeah, she is.
I really
I'm not.
like to
I'm a rebel.
toe the line.
Let's push the envelope.
And Julie's like, what's it like on the other side of that line?
Right. Now I like to push the envelope. But yeah, when people get out of line, I'm like, yeah. I'll cut you. But so for me, I found the Lord at age 19, and then felt I had a birthday right after I received the Lord. So at like 20, I felt called into ministry. And that process, a lot has happened since then. What you think it's going to look like and what it becomes are two totally different things. The process is so important for who I am today. I need it.
But part of that process is teaching us day by day how to set your heart on his process and on his pilgrimage.
Yeah, for sure.
And aligning yourself, because so often it's just so easy to be misaligned, and even to have big dreams or have a vision for something he's laid on your heart that possibly he could do in your life, and then go, I just don't see it. Or I think my problem is I'm like, God, look what you could use. You could do it just like this.
Right. You could do it my way.
Good.
This looks the best way of doing things. I think in reference to the podcast, and there were always these markers in our life of God speaking to us and saying, this is the direction, without actually being like, you know what I'm saying? Whenever I was 20, had just received the Lord, called into ministry, and I had a dream that I was speaking in front of a large group of people, but I couldn't see any of their faces, and had no idea what that meant. And
because it didn't exist.
It didn't exist then at all. It didn't exist.
So side note, because this is how we do couch talks, God can actually lay things on your heart that seem like they don't make sense. They literally might not even be created yet. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Because he literally did that to John when he did Revelation. Like when he was showing John Revelation, he was like, all the world is going to see what's happening. Well, TV was not invented.
He does it.
He does it.
So there could be dreams on your heart that you're like, that makes no sense. Correct.
Right.
that
God is a nonsensical God.
That exposes our need for him, our great need for
absolutely.
him in our process.
For sure.
And for him to get glory. But anyway, go ahead.
But well, and a lot of things happened between that time and now, you know, like
yes,
we're called to something. It doesn't exist. We're like, well, I guess I'm just going to do it this way. And you really have no idea what it's going to look like. But you have to follow the process. You have to trust God. You have to believe in that. I call it like the burning bush moment, the moment that he says, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the way, walk in it.
And you know, like for me, that leads me to a place like when I'm on this process and I'm on this journey, I have to, it's my personality. Maybe this isn't what everybody else has to do, but I have to reduce my prayers sometimes to yes or no. Isaiah 30, like
Very
you
good.
will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. And I have to go like yes or no, left or right. Because, you know, I can get frustrated in my current occupation. I actually really love my current occupation, but, you know, hypothetically, you can get really caught up in your day-to-day in your current occupation, and you can go, I know that this isn't my long term. I know that this isn't what I'm supposed to always do. Why am I doing this right now? And if you're not willing to go, okay, so God, yes or no, today am I called to this job? And humble yourself enough to hear, yes, girl, today this is the seat that you're sitting in. Yep. I have
That's
something great
like,
for you
for sure.
Today. And so I have to reduce my prayer sometimes to the yes or no. Mm-hmm. I have to get out of the mindset of praying for the frills and for, you know, and I have to steady my heart on this is his yes and this is his no. And the yes doesn't make sense or the no doesn't make sense, but he does.
Yeah, he does.
He supersedes what makes sense to me. He supersedes my understanding. And so maybe somebody listening to this, you're in a place and you're praying about something. And I would just encourage you, like, it's not always about praying for the big things. Sometimes it's about praying for the yes and the no today. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times Julie and I have had conversations about wanting to do ministry together. There has always been a pull, and it is a God-given anointing supernatural pull to do ministry together, to love people together, to pray with people together, to sit on couches and at Mexican restaurants with people together and talk out life and hash it out and encourage and challenge. And it hasn't been the right time.
Right.
But then we come through this process of these dailies. Yes, my girl. No, my girl. Yes, my girl.
For sure.
No, my girl. And suddenly for like, even going back almost 20 years where God's like giving you this dream and it's a faceless crowd. A year and a half ago, Danny and I were riding down the road. We were on a Just Us trip, and we like to play question games. We like to get like question books for couples. And so one of the questions was if you could see your partner, your spouse doing anything other than what they're currently doing 5 years from now, what would it be? What would they be successful at? And without hesitation, Danny was like, oh, you could do a podcast. And I just started laughing because I was like, who would listen to me? That's so weird. And he was like, no, I think he actually said, he was like, I think you tend to discredit yourself. I think that we're going to have to agree to disagree. That the question was, what do you see? And I was like, so I literally couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, baby, you're so cute. The way that you like me and the way that you think I'm great. Like, that's so sweet.
And I think it's a good opportunity to kind of introduce you to our lives really quick. Trisha's talking about her husband, Danny. You're going to hear us talk about Danny and Ben a lot. Ben's my husband. I have 3 kids. Tricia has 1 little boy. Jude is her little boy, my sweet little nephew, and he's
wild.
a wild man.
He
a wild man.
He's sweet, he's tender, but man.
He's straight up wild. And then I have 3 girls, Isla, Georgia, and Lily. And Tricia and I are married to pastors at our church. And we do a lot of ministry. We're in different areas of ministry in our lives. Tricia runs our college at our church, and Ben and I campus pastor one of our campuses. So it's very different what we do, but coming diverse, together. It is. It's very super diverse.
Kingdom work.
Yeah. So Danny does love Tricia deeply, and she obviously thought what he had to say was very funny.
I did think it was funny. He does not think that my random British accent is funny. Apologies to England who listens.
You will definitely hear Tricia break out into random British accent.
Actually, my coffee cup today is from the House of Commons, so.
Like I said.
But it was really funny. So my husband and I had this conversation on this trip, and I didn't think about it again. And then back in March of 2023, we actually had a presbytery weekend, which is where we invite some people who operate in a prophetic anointing to come to our church. And one of our guests had a very strong word for me, and it was something that, and it was straight from Judges 4, referring to Deborah as judge and prophet. And I was just diving into it because some of the things that she had said to me, I was like, that resonates so deeply in my heart. That's a yes, but I don't see how it works. Like my spirit is saying yes, and my heart is saying yes, but physically and logistically and connections and like that makes no sense. And some of the things she said to me, I laughed at her.
Right.
She said some really bold things to me, and I actually dismissively like I feel like I do Abraham's Sarah dismissive laugh way too often in my life. But she said these incredible things, and I was like, okay, well, thank you. But I actually was handwriting this prophetic word, and I had worship music going, and I was just seeking the Lord, and I was seeking his face. And I was like, God, yes, these are things that you've put in my spirit. I agree. I just don't see how that happens. I don't see how that happens with what I'm currently doing. And I don't see how that happens with my current connections. And I even was kind of saying some things like, I don't know how that happens. I don't know that I have leaders that believe that I'm capable of this. And, because when you get in your own headspace, it's not really about anybody else. It's about your own perception. And I immediately felt like the Holy Spirit said, I haven't asked anyone else to believe in this.
Right. Yeah.
And that was really profound because I was like, well, it seems like that would make sense to me that you would have other people believe in,
And where it's humbling to the flesh, it's actually very God empowering.
So God
we
empowering.
Don't, like when we say other people believe in our dreams, then we don't need God to hop in and value our dreams.
We don't need the supernatural.
That's right.
We just need our connections that we've worked hard for. Right. And so often we can get confused in the seats that God has placed us in, like, oh, did he set this up so that XYZ could happen? And we can see. And what's funny is I think that God actually puts us in these seats where it's like, oh, that's a great connection. And oh, that's a really good thing. And you've worked really hard and you've accomplished this. So all these things actually very well could lead to everything that I've promised you. But guess what? I'm going to do it so much better.
Right.
That I'm not going to share glory with man.
Right.
And I'm going to blow your mind with how I do this.
Right.
And in that regard,
a lot of times we feel like we need people on board to qualify what we're doing. And that's not the way God intends it. God is like, I'm the one.
He speaks
I'm the one. I'm your champion.
And then in his process, he sends.
Yes.
And so I called Julie after I actually spent time. I will be very candid with you. I spent time on my face on the floor repenting for holding the bride of Christ responsible for God-given dreams,
Right.
for holding my husband responsible for God-given dreams, for holding my pastors responsible for God-given dreams.
Yeah.
God, the author and the finisher, was the only one that wanted to be held responsible for the things that he put in me. And God, the author and the finisher, is the only one that wants to be held responsible for your dreams.
Right. Yeah.
And does he use people along the way? Does he use our experience? Yes, he does. But that can't be the expectation. The expectation is, I set my eyes on you. I've set my heart on this pilgrimage. I am confident in what you can and will do. So I'll wait. I'll wait. Or when you speak, I'll hear it as a call to action.
Right.
And so this last year, since then, I called Julie and I was like, hey, would you ever start a podcast with me?
No, that is not what she said. I'm going to disagree real big right there. Tricia called and she said, hey, we're starting a podcast. She's so 8. She's such an 8. She was like, hey, we're starting a podcast, okay? Because God has called us to do this, be in ministry together, and all the things. She said all the things. And I was 100% her hype girl. I was like, yes.
I was so burdened and excited that I was crying.
Yes.
I was like, God has called us to this.
Yeah, she preached. She 100% totally TD Jakes to me. And so whenever she said that, I mean, you need to know that was about a year ago. And we're thinking, yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, something you need to know about us right now. Like, you need to know this right now. Conceptually, we're amazing.
We can dream.
Details.
We will be there for you.
All of it.
We can make it happen.
Vision casting. I mean, all the magic, glitter, everything.
And what it can be 10 years from now, my gracious.
Oh, my Lord.
I can rock your world.
Take over the world. But let me just tell you, we dreamed. And then 2 months later, hey, we're going to do this. We're
still dreaming.
We're going to start this podcast. 6 months later,
we actually got to lead a class together, a women's class at our church.
That's right, during the summer.
And it was a lot like this. It was us, we call them couch talks, and we're like, sharing, and we sent it to table time where our small group, the ladies in the small groups, got to talk, and we turned off our microphones, and I went, when are we starting our
That's
podcast?
Right. She leans over and she was like, literally, when are we starting this? So we reached out to a friend of ours who's a podcaster and met with her. We love you, April. And we met with her, and she was super influential. And then we're like, now we're going to start this podcast. We know what we're doing. We're going to do this. And then 4 months later, did I mention that we're moms? We're moms of, and I own a business. Trisha runs a college. Hello.
Shout out to my sweethearts.
And so
spiritual mom for life.
It was literally like, is this actually
is it going to happen?
Going to happen?
Or is this like one of those things where God gave us an inspiration, and so we'll start it 5 years from now?
Sure.
And we had told we had spoken to a few of our close friends, people that we trust, like, to be praying to, and had gotten so much like empowering feedback that we had people that that we know there's evidence in their lives of them seeking the Lord, and they had encouraged and they believed in. And so, it wasn't that we weren't saying it would never happen. We felt the assurance of God's calling on it, but there was very much but is it for now? Is it for,
Right. There was no fire under the butt. There was no fire under the butt. So anyway, we had Danny, Trisha's husband, lit the fire.
Sent us an email
and was like, hello,
I'd like to invite you to coffee.
When are y'all going to do this? And he laid it all out for us, the process, how we should start, deadlines, all that. He literally in the coffee made us say, this is the first air date.
And this is when we will record. And this is when we
will
study.
Broke out in hives and was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get this done?
I got a lump in my throat because I was like,
oh, it's so great.
This man of God is so great.
Yeah, it's so good. And we still, logistically, there were people that we needed. So we had some people that came on board, 2 we invited, and 1 that was like, I'm in. So our producer, our co-producer, and our social media,
our team.
Yeah, our team.
But when it started happening, it happened in a way that I could not have planned.
No.
That I could not have made happen. That I sat in front of my husband and I said, God is so strongly on display through this process, and that is his desire. And next week we're going to jump into a couple of stories from the word that have spoken to us in different seasons of process. We mentioned at the beginning, like looking through the word, we're looking at Abraham, we're looking at Joseph, we're looking at David, we're looking at Jesus himself, we're looking at Paul, we're looking at all of these like heroes of our faith who went on a pilgrimage, and how those pilgrimage stories applied to our lives in our process and our pilgrimage. So,
and we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. I mean, we're going to, we're going to talk about the story of losing our dad. We're going to talk about the process of what high school looked like for us, and what our separate ministry stories look like for us, what parenting looks like for us, especially in a world of social media. I have a teenager. So we're going to be jumping into that. We're really excited just to share with you, not just how the Lord like led and directed through this process, but also how he led us to laugh, because we laugh a lot. We have to laugh.
And that's the thing with it being an And She Laughs podcast. So I mentioned that I laugh, dismissively like Sarah. But also when you're looking at Proverbs 31, it actually, it says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she laughs without fear of the future. And so many times on my journey, on our journey, like there is a fear of the future, a fear of the unknown, and to have such confidence in the Lord that we can laugh gleefully, joyfully at his goodness.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's the And She Laughs podcast, and we plan on laughing. We plan on crying. We've got some different things that are coming up.
We don't plan on crying. It just happens. It's just like
we were praying before this recording, and
yep. And of course,
I offer tears.
Yeah,
easy.
You need to know. I was like, Trisha, fix your mascara. fix your face.
Because if I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna make it count.
Yes, for sure.
But takeaways, Jules. Like, if there are ways that we can pray for you, if you are on a pilgrimage, if you are seeking the Lord's yes and the Lord's no's, we would love the opportunity to pray with you and war with you, and because that's our dream is to feel like we're doing life with you.
Yeah,
feel like you're at the house on the couch drinking coffee,
right,
talking about the Lord,
right,
hashing it out with the Lord, and so that's what we would want for you to get from today and from every day.
Yeah, and absolutely. And a couple of ways that you can find us. We're on Instagram, the And She Laughs podcast. And then our nifty little streaming service here that we're spending a fortune on. We love you on Riverside. We are you're able to listen to us on a couple of different platforms, but DM us on Instagram. Talk to us about how we can pray with you, about your experiences, your process.
Yeah,
and we'd love to hear from you.
So thank you for tuning in. We won't see you next week, but we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah,
bye, y'all.
Bye.